Leslye Headland teases a female-led Disney Plus series with a new timeline and characters. So basically, what she's doing is wanting to create this whole other pocket in the universe, in the Star Wars universe, and it's female led. They're in, uh, you know, they're obviously in the universe, but we don't know exactly what the time frame is,
Mm-hmm.
and it sounds like it's not going to take place around any of the major events of any of the other films or series that we know of right now. I mean, right now this is just she's just teasing this, but um, she would be set to direct, and she's done things like Russian Doll. I'm not familiar with that, so
I've
I
heard
don't
of
know
it,
if
but
you
I
are.
don't know. I mean, I've
Yeah.
heard of it, and I've heard it's really good, but I don't. Yeah, I haven't seen it.
Hmm.
I mean, I've heard of her,
Yeah.
but I haven't seen anything. But I'll tell you this. Now, I don't know. Obviously, I'm going to get your thoughts on this, but
Mhm.
first of all, I was really surprised because I remember when this was actually discussed by Kathleen Kennedy like a year ago, maybe.
Mhm.
It was either like last year around this time, or maybe it was like earlier, like in the spring or something, where all of a sudden there was this article that, oh yeah, Kathleen Kennedy is trying to make this new female-led Star Wars series.
Okay.
And some people were thinking that what it actually was her setting up her next move after Lucasfilm.
Mm.
Like there has been kind of like this battle in Lucasfilm, and she's like, trying to, I mean, almost do, I don't know. I don't even know what she was trying to do. But I remember my first reaction was like, oh, here we go. The SJWs are at it again. Now we got to, uh, political statement or whatever. That's what I thought it was. But then it kind of went away. So I thought,
Mm.
well, okay, maybe it's a rumor. And then this article pops up. And I got to tell you, man, this thing came out of nowhere for me.
Yeah.
But I got to say, once I read the description, even though there wasn't really a whole lot of details, but they were talking about, okay, it's not going to involve any characters that you know. It's going to
Mhm.
be kind of like this. The pitch that she used was like she did the whole like Indiana Jones thing where they're showing like the little red dotted line going from place to place on the map.
Right. Yeah.
And she was like, this is kind of the tone of the series. It's going to be like a planet hopping, kind of like an Indiana Jones kind of vibe.
Yeah. That was one of the things that she kind of said with, you know, when she was pitching this actually to Lucasfilm, to her quote was, "For me, it's less about going through the Star Wars universe cinematically or artistically. I'm actually kind of combing through it geographically
Yeah.
and go on a literal journey." So, she did say when we were pitching, I had my designer create that Indiana Jones like we go here and then we go here with the little dotted red line. So yeah, this is going to be interesting. I think as it develops a little bit more. The thing um, that where my head initially went, and then the headline, of the article kind of said, no, it can't be that because, female led. That immediately made me think of the Witches of Dathomir. Um,
Ah.
so but if it's a new timeline and characters, then it can't be that because we've seen those. We've seen them already, and so I don't know. Maybe it's going to be something more along those lines. But it does sound to me like perhaps it's not going to be uh, within characters that are necessarily rooted in one place or the other. They kind of sound um, like they just go. They're maybe they live on a starship or something, and
Oh, like kind of a
um,
Battlestar Galactica thing?
yeah, almost, or uh, they're just I I don't know. I don't know what word I'm trying to think of, but
Well,
They're almost like
this
wanderers, they don't call any place home really.
yeah,
Um,
yeah.
yeah, they just kind of go from place to place. So
That's what it sounds like. Ronaldo seems to think that it'll take place during the High Republic era.
mm, okay,
Now, for me, and again, so much like you, I immediately jumped to something a little different, but because they said
okay,
that it was, okay, it's not any timeline that we know and all this other stuff, I'm like, oh, I guess not. I thought it was going to be Dr. Afra. That's who I thought
oh,
they were going to do.
okay,
Because
that would
remember,
be interesting. That would
that would
be
be
interesting.
super interesting. And if you think about it, the way that she describes this series would fit the Dr. Afra comic series to a T.
Right.
She's kind of like the Indiana Jones of the Star Wars universe. She's going from place to place. There is an audience because anybody that knows anything about Afra, they're fully into the character. So
Right.
that's kind
The
of where
only
my
thing
mind went.
the only thing is the timeline though, because if it's a new
Exactly.
timeline, then that kind of cancels that out. But
And that was exactly the thing. It's like once I read that, I'm like, oh wait, if it's a new timeline, it can't be. But then it made me mad because I'm like, well, that's what it should be.
yeah.
It's like if you want that, you have a character built into that. Now,
Mhm.
and I don't know what everybody out there is thinking. Well, okay. Ronaldo just popped in with a comment. He says, considering the description, it sounds like Dr. Afra. Well,
Yeah.
yes. And so I don't know what anybody else besides Ronaldo might be thinking, but essentially, it's just, I don't know. It's like, on one hand, I get that they're trying to now maybe go and break out of this whole like Skywalker timeline.
Mhm.
But at the same time, it's kind of like, okay, you guys are creating these brand new characters already within your expanded, and by that I mean beyond the films.
Yeah.
And so it's like, okay, you create a character like Dr. Afra, you have a fan base for that now. Why not take a character like that into the television series or
Mhm.
even a movie, you know? Ronaldo says it may be a series under the label of Legends and takes place in the Legends universe.
Hmm.
I don't think so, only because I don't think they want to legitimize Legends like that, because the second you actually do a series, I mean, I guess I can understand what he's saying, because on one hand it is like they sort of opened that door with some of the books where it's like, okay, these are kind of like Star Wars Legends. They're not like, they really haven't happened. It's almost like, our version of comic book superheroes or something.
Mhm.
But at the same time, I don't think that they would want to confuse the fan base too much. I think that whatever this is going to be a canonized, okay, this is really happening in the universe. It's just happening at this either a different timeline, different part of the galaxy, whatever. What are you thinking?
Well, I'm wondering, do you think it'll have like the whole Jedi Sith thing, or do you think it's going to focus on a completely different level of character? Like my, as you were talking, uh, my mind kind of went to the Tarkin novel actually, because there was a group in, and I forget the name of their group, but they were kind of like mercenaries.
Mm-hmm.
They the basically pirates almost, I guess you could say, but not really pirates. Mercenaries describes them a little bit better. They were hired um, to steal Tarkin's battleship or his star cruiser, because it was like top of the line high tech thing, and that's kind of what they did. They just traveled around the galaxy, looking for these jobs to pick up, and um, they were having that kind of almost that kind of adventure, and uh, I would kind of consider them uh, to be bad guys.
I think,
I guess, but
honestly,
I don't know.
I think that was the Grisk.
Was it? Yeah.
I
That sounds
think
right.
so, because they also popped up in the Thrawn novels as well.
Okay.
And you find out that they were one of the main, almost like, I don't really want to say like arch enemies, but they were definitely a adversarial group to the Chiss.
Mm.
And you find out a little bit more about them. And I remember them from the Tarkin novel. I'm pretty sure it was the same people. And I think that's why Ronaldo was actually going to the High Republic, because the High Republic actually introduced a bunch of different pirate-like characters as well.
Okay.
The Nihil or Neil, or it's Nihil or something.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so, that makes sense. And then Ronaldo's further speculating, because that's about all we could do at this point, that maybe it's about Dr. Aphra traveling in the world between worlds.
Hmm.
I mean, that could fit the description. But again, I think that, to Dave's point, and Dave is just referencing the article, really, where it's talking about, hey, this is going to be a time period where, you don't know.
Unexplored.
Yeah. He also says, my last prediction, it's about Maz Kanata when she was young. Once again, had to reiterate Dave's point, which is the article. It's a timeline that hasn't been, But now, that's intriguing, though. What would you say to a Maz Kanata backstory? First of all, where do you think that would fit? Do you think that should be a book, a comic, a movie, or a TV series?
Oh, if it were like a limited run TV series, I could get behind that in animated form, I think. If it were, it could easily be like a comic there as well. I don't think it's really that big of a backstory for a book or a novel.
So if it were a book or a novel, what I would do is I would make it a part of something else that's bigger.
Okay.
So in other words, like her backstory, like let's say you're doing stuff with the High Republic, because remember that takes place like 200 to 700 years or something before the Phantom Menace. So what I would do is, we already know we're dealing with a young Yoda in that. You could weave Maz Kanata's backstory into that if you wanted to.
Okay.
So if it was, that's where I would put it in a book, because I totally agree. I don't think that her backstory, I mean, unless you make something, she is 1,000 years old. So if you make it to where it's almost like she's seeing some of the events from her point of view, I think that could be interesting, but I don't necessarily think it warrants like an entire book, though.
Right.
A comic?
Not unless she did something like super amazing, which I don't know if she actually did.
I don't think so.
When she was younger, but yeah.
But then again, we don't know. And the thing is, we don't really know, because the High Republic thing is something where I think it's a stroke of genius among the creators and then Lucasfilm for actually licensing and sanctioning this, where we know a lot about, well, we kind of do anyway. I don't know how much is canon. They did canonize Revan, and they did some stuff like that, but we know a lot about the Old Republic.
Mm-hmm.
And of course we know about, the movies and stuff, the Skywalker saga, but it's in between that we really don't have a lot of knowledge.
Mm-hmm.
And that's where I think it could get really interesting, because you have a situation to where you could really tell, how did the Jedi Council get from what they were in the Old Republic to what we know in the Phantom Menace?
Right.
Because they weren't as dogmatic back then. And it's like, things had to happen to then make them the way they are now. And that could be really interesting. And you could definitely plug Maz Kanata into that if you wanted to. Another interesting thing is, like you said, animated series.
Right.
I think that's the only way that you can go if you're going to bring it into the more series/movie type of thing.
Mm-hmm.
But, I mean, The problem is she gave us just enough details to get us kind of into it, but not enough to really pinpoint anything.
Exactly. There's
So,
still a shroud of mystery around it. So,
well, that and
sure.
the mysterious Rian Johnson trilogy, which the angry fans just going to go ballistic over probably when that comes out. But the thing is, I will say this though. Her teases basically took me from barely interested. Because,
Mhm.
look, I'm going to see if it's got the Star Wars name on it, I'm going to watch it.
Sure.
But I really didn't care about it. I mean, I was actually putting this thing that she was talking about right up there with like the Ewok Adventures or something. Like it's like, whatever. But I mean, I thought it could be interesting depending on what they did with it, but it's like,
Mhm.
whatever. But now I have to say, after reading this article, I'm kind of going, this could actually be kind of cool, whatever it is.
Mm.
But, what are you guys thinking? You know the drill. Let us know in the comments section if you're watching the rebroadcast, or you could still chat. I mean, you could follow Ronaldo's lead. Let us know what you guys are thinking. And again, don't forget to subscribe to the channel, like the video, and click the bell notification so you guys can get notified on when we have other content, because we are starting to churn out some other videos now, so you're not going to want to miss it.
Head to Head, a Star Wars podcast. Be sure to follow us on Twitter @HeadToHeadSW. Submit your questions for our next show. Visit our official website at headtoheadswpodcast.com. Until next time, may the Force be with you, always.